Welcome Marco Sommerville, Deputy Mayor for Intergovernmental Relations for the current administration, and somebody who's got a long history in our community. Just a few words of introduction to outline his background a little bit. Some of this you can find on websites and those kinds of things, but I'll give you guys the highlights as soon as I can find them. There we go. So for those of you who don't know him, Marco Sommerville is an experienced public service servant and Akron businessman who's owned a successful funeral home for over 40 years. It's tough to have anything run successfully for 5, much less 40, so congratulations on that, Marco. Prior to opening his business, he worked at Goodyear, which also employed his mother, father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. He's a graduate of now state champion Bucktel High School. Sommerville attended Kent State University. Wait, Elizabeth must have left. She did leave. I was waiting for Elizabeth Bartz to sort of yell something out about flashes. And he also attended the Cincinnati College of Mortuary Sciences. He's also a proud father of 3 historically black college and university graduates. Now, Deputy Mayor Sommerville has previously served as planning director, city council president, and ward councilman. So a lot of experience in different venues there. He's been an active part of the city's work in the past to support the attraction and retention of jobs in the city in projects focused on companies like Goodyear and Gojo, and also supporting initiatives designed to help grow and start small and neighborhood businesses. He helped bring Stark State to Akron to make college and job training accessible and affordable. And in addition to his administrative experience, he's contributed to the greater Akron community in a lot of ways as a leader, as a board member and chair of the Akron Metropolitan Housing Authority, as president of the Akron branch NAACP, and as part of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. He's also a member of the board of Downtown Akron Partnership, and he was appointed as the director of the Summit County Board of Elections in 2021. I think a seat you now no longer hold, given your current candidacy. So as we get started this morning, I'd like to give you an opportunity to tell us why you, why now, why is this the right gig for you, for you and for our city?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. It's so good to see so many people out today. Why me? That's a good question. I ask that every morning I wake up.
You look in the mirror and ask that question? Yeah.
But first of all, I love this community. I love this city. I'm a proud resident of Akron, Ohio. I started a successful business here in this community. I raised 3 fantastic children. They're all doing great in their own realm. My daughter just got promoted at Google this week, so we're real happy about that. 3 weeks before that, my son got promoted at senior vice president of Citibank in New York City. He lives in Harlem. And then I have my daughter, Margot, who's the president of Akron City Council. So I'm so pleased and so proud of them, and that's because of this community. They all grew up in this community, all were part of this community. And then with my activities, being the past president of the NAACP, being involved as a ward council person, president of the city council, elected by my peers for 13 years to lead that body. And then I was planning director, and then my position as mayor, and then all the various boards that I volunteered for through the years, helping getting levies passed, the zoo or the school board or wherever, trying to make sure that this community stays strong. And I learned one thing through all that experience, that you have to listen to the community. When you listen to the community's concerns, then you put a detailed plan of action together. And that's what we've always tried to do, and we're looking at focusing on, of course, making sure that Akron is a affordable city to live in, and where seniors can live in their homes without having to move out. We want to make sure we have workforce development and a strong education system and a safe school system, because when we're trying to sell this community, if we don't have safe schools, it just doesn't work. We're not getting anybody who wants to come here, so we have to make sure we do those kind of things. We also want to make sure that we modernize all city services from A to Z. We're looking at doing that. And we're going to fight for every community, every neighborhood, whether that's in Columbus or whether that's in DC, to make sure that this community stays strong.
Marco, you have on your website an amazing amount of detail on ideas and things that you sort of want to see happen in our city.
Please don't ask me to repeat all this. There's so much. I'm not going to be able to do it.
We all have teams.
I'm going to refer you to the website. We all have
teams that help us with those things. But I guess my question to you is, you've been such a big part of the city's leadership of its sort of public service, as you said, as council president and also as deputy mayor and planning director. What is sort of will be distinguishing or different about you as mayor of the city and your administration moving forward, different than sort of what we're seeing today, if anything?
Well, of course, it's going to be my experiences, my life experience that I've had. So that's what I bring to the table, the things that I've been through. I've been through good, I've been through bad. I understand how it is to start a business. I understand how it is to try to get a loan. I know how it is to make payroll. I know how it is to be the owner of a company and not get paid. I mean, I know about all those kind of things. So those are the kind of things that I bring to the table. And I also bring to the table the fact of my experience just through the years, being involved in the Goodyear transaction, being involved in Bridgestone, Rushling, all the companies that have come here. I've played some roles at some point in time. And of course, Stark State.
Okay. I mean, and we've all been sort of, many of us have been in situations where we are the person who is supporting the leader, the person who is sort of behind the scenes getting things done. But is there one or two things that you just want to make sure that you accomplish for the city in the first year or two? I'm not asking for a point of departure with the current administrators, but just something that's been getting at you that you say, I just got to see this get done.
Well, I think there's a couple things that I want to see done. First of all, I want to make sure we have a strong school system. And I think that is so important, in particularly our public school system. The children that go there have no other options. They don't have options. Most of them can't afford to go to a private school. So we got to make sure that system works for those children, because that's the only hope that they have, the only way they're going to be able to move forward. And I can tell you, in my own children's life, if it had not been for education, they would not be where they're at today. So that's why that's paramount. And the other, safety, public safety, police. I think that's a big issue that I think we need to work on. All my time when I was in NAACP, I was fighting the police, trying to make sure that they were up to full strength, but also making sure that they were diverse, which has been a real problem. And we had to take them to court when I was in NAACP and sue the city, make them hire people. We did that, and then after a while, the dissent decrees that we had, the courts changed and they weren't any good anymore. So now you see that we only have maybe like 11 to 12% of the force now is African American, which is dismal. Fire is probably about 13%, so not too much better. So those are the kind of issues that we have to work with and have to make sure that these departments reflect the community. And right now they just don't.
We've had occasion to talk a little bit in the past about some of the issues that we've seen with our school board, with school leadership, and those kinds of issues. And I know the school is not at your control as mayor.
Not yet. Could be.
So talk
could
more
be.
about
It's a
what
possibility.
You see,
could
what
be.
we should be doing as a city in that space, because our kids in that school system are our single largest source of talent for the future for this community.
Well, I mean, I know this is a business community, and I don't mean to rag on anybody, but we should have paid attention who's running for these seats, and we did a poor job of doing that, and I'll take my blame for it also. But we have to make sure we have quality people running, and the last couple of times we just haven't had that happen. And then we had people who ran and nobody ran against them, so they got in automatically. That's even worse. So we just need to step up and make sure that we have quality people running, and make sure that those individuals get elected and they can have a say-so what direction the school board is going. We had a situation where we had 4 new board members come on at the same time with no experience. Name never been in lights, never been involved in the community, but 4 of them got together, and you see what happened over there. It has not been a good situation, and it's just sad that it's happened that way. And they hired a superintendent who's from Akron, grew up in the system, and for somehow, and they selected that person, and they ended up getting rid of her in 2 years. I don't understand that. I've tried to have discussions with them about it. They don't want to talk about it, so it's just disheartening.
So we have done a great job, though, here in this community driving forward this college and career academy model, right? We've got lots of business involvement and participation with our public schools here, and your point earlier that a lot of our kids don't have other choices, right? This is the place where they're going to get their best experience. Well, I saw some statistics the other day. We were talking about these ideas around these out of school time network, and the idea that a lot of the violence that happens among youth really happens in that that part of the day after school and before sort of maybe they get home for the evening, or there's more structure happening at home in the evening. But one of the numbers that I noted was that about 10 years ago, we had about 1,000 kids working through employment that was sponsored and driven, I think, by the city was very involved in making that happen. And that number is down now to about 100 kids or so in that program. How do we help these kids get better connected to work experiences and those things that will show them paths going forward?
Well, I think we have to try to identify some areas where there's going to be a future for these kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just yesterday, I went out to the Carpenters Union.
Mm-hmm.
They have a facility out in Richfield, not in Akron. We need to work on bringing them back here, but still in your area. I know you're happy about that.
So we'll get them in
but it was just a phenomenal experience to see all the people out there who were getting trained to be carpenters, and the fact the way they even finance that school out there, they don't take any state or federal money at all. They take 3 cents out of every dollar that is made by a person in the union, and they put it in that program. So I'm thinking, when I think of wood, carpentry, wood, but it's metal,
mm-hmm.
metal framing and metal ceilings, and it was just phenomenal to see. And the beautiful thing about that is, if you go through that program for 4 years, you're 3 credits short of getting a degree. And the biggest thing about it, and there's a father who sent 3 kids to college, which is very expensive, particularly if you're talking about historical black colleges, because they don't get the funding. Mm-hmm. Other places, they're debt-free. They don't have any debt, and then they go right into a job. Mm-hmm. They go to a job starting at $70,000 a year, coming right out. So those are the kind of things that we need to start trying to focus people in and move them in different directions. Everybody's not going to go to college. Everybody doesn't want to do that. But there's other avenues out there. There's the electrical union, and there's the painting union, and a lot of other unions out there who are looking for people to work and get an opportunity. But a lot of young people don't want to do that kind of work, and I think we need to show them that it's just a better way of making a living than some other alternatives that are out there in the streets.
Is there a specific role that the city can play in that from your perspective?
Well, of course, I think we could play a role, and we need to play a role by making sure that whatever monies are out there available, that we can help set up some of these programs and try to push these kids in that direction. So, of course, we could do that. And another thing I'd like to see us do, too, there's a guy by the name of Kevin Dorsey, mm-hmm. who's from Akron, Ohio. It's a great story, because the story is that he was at Morehouse College, and he gets a call from 2 Akronites. And those 2 Akronites were a guy by the name of James Ingram, who everybody I hope knows, who's in music. If you don't, shame on you. And the other would be Philip Ingram, and they're brothers. And so they call Kevin Dorsey up, who's in Atlanta, going to Morehouse College, and say, listen, Quincy Jones is looking for talent. And so Quincy, he said, well, how many people's on the list? So he tells them that there's 7,000 people who have applied to be tapped by Quincy Jones. So he tells, listen, man, there's no way, 7,000, I mean, I'm gonna get overlooked. But these 2 guys from Akron said, no, put your name in. I mean, I think this is a great story. Put your name in. He puts his name in, make a long story short, he gets selected. So he comes back from going to school, and people in his dorm tell him, they say, listen, you know what? Some guy named Quincy called you. He said, well, Quincy who? He said, I think he said Quincy Jones. So for the next couple of days, he didn't go to class. He stayed by the phone, and then Quincy called him. And so from there, that started his whole career. And so there's a guy by the name of Eddie Fowellen, who's also from Akron and also from Bookto High School, who's with a group called Switch. And he has a podcast. And so, the pandemic, you're home by yourself, you're kind of getting bored. I'm looking at my computer, and I see this podcast that's going on, and it has Kevin Dorsey. And I said, wow, let me listen to it. And Kevin has the great stories of, going around the world, with Quincy Jones, getting hooked up with Michael Jackson for 24 years, and like going to the amusement park or singing for the Queen. of England and the whole thing. And so I listened to these great stories. Now he's doing movies, doing Marvel movies. He does movie scores. He plays 13 different instruments. And I'm hearing these great stories, and I'm saying, well, where is he at now? What is he doing? Since I'm a funeral director, everybody comes sometime through the funeral home, so I get his number. I said, well, if I ever go to California, I know somebody famous. Yeah. And so I kept his number. So I called him on the phone. And I said, hey, man, I just read about you. He said, Marco, I haven't heard from you in a while. He said, but I said, man, I'm just proud of your accomplishments, but I just want to know one thing. What you doing for Akron? What you doing for your own hometown? He said, Marco, I ain't been to Akron in 16 years. I said, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. I want to know when you're coming home. He said, what do you mean I said, when you coming home? When you going to make a difference home? You got people in this community that you could help with your experiences. And you have an obligation to get involved in your own community. And long pause, so I had to push him a little bit harder. He said, I tell you what, I'm gonna see you in 3 weeks. And he came, and he's been coming back. And so, the first thing that we got him doing, he's working with the Civic Theater. And a lot of the groups that we're getting now that the Civic couldn't get, he's getting them for us. So we got him doing that. But the thing that I really want him to do for us is to teach children how to play instruments, and have a place or a room like this where kids can come in. There'll be a piano, there's a saxophone, there's a trombone, there's a set of drums, and kids could be exposed to music and get exposed to that kind of life. And that's the thing that I think we're going to do, and he's willing to do that, and we're going to try to probably do something partnering with the Akron Public Schools. And I'm sure there's probably people in this room who have children who they bought a trumpet or a saxophone and threw it in the corner. Give it to the mayor's office so we can get it in a kid's hand so they can learn how to play that instrument.
So, your story kind of underlines the importance and the value of relationships over time.
Everything.
So talk about that, because I think the one thing that your deep experience brings is lots of relationships. How is that what you'll bring as mayor in terms of that connectivity?
Listen, relationships is everything. Everything is a relationship. And you have to build relationships, and you have to build relationships over a period of time. And I've tried to do that, through the years. And generally, most people that I call will take my calls. Most people, very few people don't take my calls. Maybe Pasquale would take my call, but other people take my calls, and I try to build upon those relationships. When we work with Goodyear, I was able to build a relationship with the chairman over there. And so I have a great relationship with him. I can get on the phone, I can talk to him, and ask him what direction they're going. And I get an idea what they're doing around the world, and want to talk to him a little bit more about getting more involved in Akron. I met with him about 3 weeks ago, and just pressed upon him that, I'd like to see him be a little bit more involved here. But he's a very busy person. He's running a company that's worldwide, and he has a lot of issues. But they still are here in Akron, and without him, they would not be here. And the fact that he is devoted to this area because he grew up in South Euclid, up in Cleveland, so he knows this part of the world, and I'm telling you, without him, we would not be able to keep him here. So those are the kind of things we need to do. So,
we've been working closely, as you know, with the city and the county and others on the Elevate Greater Akron work over the last, 5 years or so. And one of the things we've done more of is that collaboration and economic development activity. As you think about that plan or the work that you think is really important in that space, where are a couple of priorities from your perspective for us to drive economic development in this region?
Well, first of all, we have to take care of the companies that we have here, and everybody wants to hear that, and that's the right thing to say, and it's the right thing to do. No problem with that. But listen, if we're going to sit in this community and think that somebody's going to bring a business here, it's never going to happen. We have to go out, and we have to sell Akron, and we have to let them know what we have here. We have to talk about the university. We have to talk about our workforce. We have to talk about the cost of living here. Those are the kind of things we have to go out and sell this community on. And we have to reach out to other parts of the world. We have to. And that changes from time to time. But now I think Lithuania, Slovenia, and Israel are 3 prime places that we need to be looking at because of the new technologies that are coming out and the new innovations are coming out of those countries. And we need to be looking at those countries and they're going to look for a place to come in America, and they should be coming here to Akron, Ohio, and we need to sell them on that. And we have a track record of doing it. We have a brand. Akron's a good brand. We just need to continue to work in that direction and bring these companies here. But if we think these companies are going to come here, just pop in here and move to Akron, it's not going to happen. We have to be the driving force. And I think the university has to play a key role in that. They have to be at the table with us when we do these things.
Yeah, it's I mean, the recent trip to Germany for the plastic show.
Did you go?
Continue to underline the.
Did you go there?
I was not there,
Okay.
but and I think you know that. But I wasn't there. The university president was there.
That's great.
There are a lot of folks that were there, but we had a lot of folks representing, especially from our polymer sector. We had a number of companies there, and we had a number of individuals. And I think that the resonance that we got there, the impact of having the university there, the impact of the history and the brand that's been built over time, by just that kind of activity seemed to play very well and brought a number of good leads back to the community. So it sounds like that's a place that you want to see us focus more.
Yeah, that we have to do that, and it works. Look at Rushling, 300 jobs. I mean, that's a great example. And we have other ones too. We always don't hit a home run. Sometimes we get a bunt. Sometimes we get a single.
Sure.
But it all works.
That's good. So I want to open up for questions that folks might have of Marco. Anybody? I got more. I can keep going. So,
When you
Chris.
spoke earlier about the Board of Education, superintendent, any thoughts about what approach you would take if that was still something that was unresolved, or moving forward with some of the logistics? You mentioned also about the four members that came on at once. What would be your approach?
So just the question is around what would be your approach differently with the schools?
Well, I'm going to say this: when actually 3 came on first, then 1 came on last, I did go to the superintendent and I tried to press upon him the fact that we were headed for disaster. I had that conversation with David James. I had it, and he didn't take my advice, and so so we got what we got. The mayor already has enough jobs. He doesn't need any more jobs, and I would hope that the school board would get their act together and move the city forward and do the things it's supposed to do. But if they don't, I mean, as the mayor, I have no other recourse is to possibly go to the state, talk to the governor, and talk about taking it over like they did in Cleveland. Don't want to do all that. I would prefer not to. But I can't just sit back and let kids who have one life, you're 10 just 1 year to 11. I mean, time is passing. These kids are not going to have enough time. I don't want time to run out over some foolishness that's going on. So that would be a drastic step, but it's on the table.
I had a question for you. You've categorized or maybe characterized yourself today, intentionally or as a fighter for the good fight. And I respect that a lot, but I'm curious as to how you categorize yourself as a peacemaker in bringing communities together just as much.
So the question was, how do you think about yourselves as a peacemaker for bringing people together to sort of make progress?
Well, there's nothing wrong with being a fighter. I mean, I think it's a good thing. But I think the fact that I could lead the Akron City Council for 13 years and keep everybody pretty happy shows that I have the ability to bring people together. I think it shows I have the ability to work with people and to work with people I don't like.
Theoretically. Got it. Other questions? So talk a little bit about your vision for our downtown and neighborhoods. Is it both and? Is it either or? What do you think about downtown and neighborhood development and where we are right now, where we got to go?
Well, I think we've done a lot of great things downtown. You can see how it looks. It looks great. We're really excited about Lock 3, the improvements going to take place there, and the street improvements and all that. So I think that's all well and good. But I think we start looking at in neighborhood business districts like Kenmore Business District, particularly Copley Road has really been neglected and really has not had enough investment. We've seen the investment that takes place when the city gets involved in Highland Square with the Mustard Seed Project and the other buildings around there. So I think we need to start looking at some of the business districts and making sure there's money and resources available for them to develop into something that it should be. I think Kenmore's doing a great job. I think I was over not too long ago, and they have seemed to have the right ingredients over there, the right people involved, and you go over and see all the storefronts are full and businesses are flourishing, and it looks really good over there.
One of the things that we heard this morning in the State of the City was this increase in the number of new housing starts that we've had in the city, new places for people to live, a lot more apartment opportunities downtown and those kinds of things. Talk a little bit about how you think about some of the areas of our community that have, we've got vacant housing, we've got lots that are available. How do we help folks in that space improve their own opportunities, property values, and communities? We were at Middlebury last week talking to Zach Cole and the work he's doing there to help residents invest in their own homes. How do you see sort of that housing development, or what do you think about housing development in our city overall?
Well, I think sometimes when people see empty lots, you think you can build a house on the lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes the lots are too small; they're not big enough. But one thing that I think that we can do to maybe increase that problem is to go to free base zoning, which would kind of change the zoning code the way as we know it today. And we need to introduce that to the city council and talk about it. HUD is talking about requiring all cities to go to that form of zoning sometime in the future. So I think we need to look at ways to do that. I think that we are with the Housing Authority, AMHA Housing Authority, which I take really a pride in being on that board, making sure that people have clean, safe, and sanitary housing. And one of the projects we work on is the Summer Lake project, and it's been getting a lot of press. It's a great project. And so we're going to build 239 homes in that neighborhood. And the good thing about that is people who live in that neighborhood now, when we tear their apartment down, we will house them in another location. And then once that project is complete, they will have first dibs on coming back to Summit Lake and live by the lake. We're not taking this property like in the past, and make sure that people who have means will get the property and take this beautiful piece of property away from people who don't have the money or the influence, and that will not be the case at Summit Lake. So that's a prime example of one thing that we're going to do and make sure it happens. And then I think we also need to work with some more neighborhood groups like East Akron Community House and Doug Cole's group and try to look at ways to build up neighborhoods and make more investment.
Do you see the property that is former Interbelt sort of property as an opportunity for us? How do you see us maybe moving forward on that property, or what are some of the ideas that you've seen there that you like?
Well, there's been a group of people who've been meeting about that for quite some time. I've been to a number of those meetings, and I think that there's a lot of property there, and a way to develop that property, we need to examine what's best. But I think it should be a place where people can work, live, and play. And I think that's the theme that I would have if we go in that neighborhood and try to bring that neighborhood back. And then same there again, you want to make sure that it's a mixed income neighborhood again, and giving people that don't have the means maybe to live there under regular circumstances the opportunity to live in that neighborhood and stay in that neighborhood. Which was just a disaster. What happened with the planning department, I have talked to the former Mayor Pasquale about this before. The planning department just did a terrible job in my district. I mean, they put all the public housing in my district. They just dumped it all in there. I could name 10, 15 units of public housing. And then they put the recycle energy plant in there. And then they, what else did they throw in there? They tore all my schools down, and kids had to move out, and all those kind of things. And it was all based on who was the planning director. And the planning director was a civil servant, and he wasn't appointed by the mayor. And so when I became a councilman and I saw that was a flaw in the system, I served on the Charter Review Commission, And I made sure we changed that, and the voters voted to make sure that the plan director is appointed by the mayor, and then if the mayor does not attend to the neighborhood's needs, then you can hold the mayor accountable. So those are the kind of things that I think we need to continue to look at to make the city move forward.
Do you have a perspective on the ease of doing business with the city and anything that you'd be looking at in terms of how do we accelerate projects, activities, opportunity through the city? Are there different roles that you sort of see maybe existing in the city to sort of help facilitate doing business with the city?
Well, I think, we probably need to do a better job of reaching out to people, letting them know what we can do and what we can't do. Mm-hmm. And listen, the information is out there, and there's people out there who are willing to come and talk about these kind of issues. And we just need to have a platform or a place that they can just come and we can give you the information. But the information is there, and we're willing to share. And sometimes maybe people don't know where to look, but we have that information that could be very helpful to people.
Outstanding. Other questions folks might have?
Yes.
If you can circle back around to the workforce development side, especially for that youth talent base from that 16, let's stretch it out to 26, on what opportunities for the inclusiveness in terms of forthcoming projects, the recruitment of working with private businesses such as myself for the semiconductor, the great need for that in manufacturing, but what is the collaborative spirit or even investment for that talent development in this market?
The question is sort of philosophy on sort of collaboration around talent development, workforce development in the community.
The investment oriented, the collaboration, and inclusive, like private companies like myself to be involved. Like there's a lot of conversation on what do we do with that youth market. But as I travel across county lines, it's kind of disappointing to not hear Akron talent being presented as some of the key talent for some of the workforce proposals. So just looking at what we can bring home, the semiconductor piece for manufacturing, the investment, the collaborations from the county side to the city side to the inclusion of private side, like how do we really move the engine forward for that talent development piece that we need? For your ideas, but.
Well, I'm trying to figure out. I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, first of all, you have to make sure you have a product that kids want to buy into, that group wants to buy into, wants to be part of. But even that, I think we need to identify some opportunities for them and kind of put it out there for them so they can see what options that they have, because I think people don't know the top options that they have. We just mentioned one option about the carpentry would be one way, but there's probably many other ways to try to capture these children and get them involved. One good way that I would like to stress that I think is doing an excellent job with the youth is the Alchemy program run by Kwame Scruggs, who was a program that was tapped by President Obama when he was in office. And what they do is they work with young men, and they start in elementary school and they stay with these kids all the way through high school. And at the end of that time, most of these kids have gone to college and been real successful. I think of Brandon Costa, who's an attorney. He went through that program, and I think he's at Buckingham Doolittle. But those kind of programs, and these programs are great programs. And what they do at Alchemy, they teach children how to deal with conflict resolution. And they do this using mythological stories, and they do it, with use of drums and other things that they do. And it's a very moving experience if you go to those. And those young people kind of stick together, and when they go off to college, they stay in touch, and they continue through the rest of their lives having these connections among each other, back to relationships. And when they're in college, and I was thinking some of these kids went to college and they got scholarships because they were good at sports. But from talking to them, man, that's not really been a real good thing for them, because when they went to some of these schools, they were treated like raw meat. They didn't care if they graduated or didn't graduate. And a lot of them, got so frustrated they ended up quitting. But they came back to the group, and the group kind of was a great source of inspiration and a great support system for them to move forward. So those are the kind of things we need to continue to build upon.
You know, over the last 5 to 10 years or so, the administration has continued to invest in support for small businesses, startups, minority businesses, women-owned businesses in our community. Are there specific things you'd like to see us doing more of in that space, or sort of driving for our city?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, of course, we will always look for ways to keep people to get money, but in order to have money and get funding, you know, you have to be ready for the opportunity too, and it's real difficult, and particularly minority businesses run into some problems. You know, I can think of one situation where we saw an opportunity in this community where they were tearing down houses, and so these people came to me and said, "Listen, we're tearing all these houses down. Maybe that's a good business to get into." So we talked about it. They went back, they ran the numbers, said, "You know what, we're going to do this thing." So of course they have to be in a situation where they got bonding, which is a problem for some businesses. And so with this particular situation, we got the bonding situation taken care of. Everything was good. So when they put their business plan together, they sent it to the city and they won the bid. So now they're the lowest bid. Now they're going to get the contract. Well, the problem that came up was that the people who didn't get the contract, who were in the business of demolition, own all the dumping sites. And so when they saw that this African-American firm had gotten the contract, they upped their fees. It upped them to the point that they couldn't make a living. Up to the point that they're going to lose their bonding. So my position was, and I was in the planning director at the time, I made the decision, you know what, they want to hurt their bonding because they're hard to get bonding, particularly for a minority business. So I took the position that I wouldn't give him any more work. So I just kind of cut him off because he's losing money. It doesn't make no sense to be in business if you're going to lose money. And so what we did, I cut giving him contracts. We rebid the contracts. The people that didn't get them, rebid it. They got them back, and you know. But that's just one of the difficult things we have to deal with. And
So bonding, more technical support, those
those
kinds of things
are
are
difficult.
priorities for those
Yeah,
companies.
difficult.
Any other questions? So
No,
just
no,
sort
no,
of,
no police questions. I mean, more police questions.
That's
I'm
what I was
not.
just going to go. We talked about safety a little bit earlier, but yeah, I mean, talk about sort of what we need to be thinking about. I was going to ask you a question about some of the concerns you have for our community, or things that you think are big issues that we got to deal with, and safety is obviously one of them. We touched on a little bit earlier, but would you like to say more there?
Well, first of all, I think we have a problem with paramedics. We have a system that after 10 years, you could opt out of the program. And being a paramedic is a big deal. It's a lot of work, a lot of study. And so after 10
And
years.
explain that, because I think I understand what you're saying, but after 10 years, somebody who is a paramedic can decide to
He's a
sort of
firefighter. See, normally you have to be a paramedic to stay on the fire department. So now you're on there, but after 10 years, you don't have to be, you can be just a fireman. You don't have to go out on paramedic runs. And most of the runs now are paramedics. And so now you have these people now, we're having a problem. I think it's in the Day's paper, where AMR wanted the city to give them $3.5 million to stay in the city.
and they're a private paramedic contractor?
Well,
AMR?
what they do, they transport.
Okay.
So if we get to a situation, if it's not an emergency, we call AMR and they take the person to the hospital, which doesn't tie up our vehicle. So we're making a decision that we're going to just have to hire new paramedics. We're going to talk about buying 20 more vehicles to accommodate our residents. Now we can bill some of these charges too, like Medicare and Medicaid and those kind of things, but that's a real concern. So we need to deal with that because so many people depend on paramedics, particularly in poor neighborhoods. Those are those individuals' doctors. That's all they have. They can't afford anything else. And then, of course, we had a situation, with the police and the diversity, and now, with this Jalen Walker verdict coming out, just trying to wait and see how that happens, which, we all are, really worried about that. I've been meeting with a group of people for the last, I don't know, couple months. And the reason for the meeting was to talk about what are we going to do when the Jalen Walker verdict comes out. I mean, everybody's talking about this is going to happen, that's going to happen. So I thought it was important to bring the people to the table who are involved in this issue. And so I have the police at the table. I had the Freedom Block at the table. Some people didn't want the Freedom Block there, but I thought that was just foolishness. You know, you have to have everybody at the table, and so we can sit down and talk. So we've been meeting. We meet this Sunday, this Saturday again. We meet this Saturday, and so we're going to be talking this Saturday about the legal side of it. What's a no bill? What happens if nobody gets indicted? What happens if somebody gets indicted? All the different scenarios, and try to explain to the community this week what's going on, so they have a better understanding. And when something happens, you know, nothing happens. You know, so I guess they had a meeting yesterday. I don't know if people from the Downtown Partnership, anybody here from there in here? I don't know if they're not here, but apparently they had a meeting, and the guy told them that you better board up your windows because we're gonna break them out, basically. And that's kind of disheartening, but but it's the reality of the situation, and hopefully we can get in front of this thing before it gets out of control.
Yeah, because our understanding is the grand jury will get it in April, likely, and we don't
Yeah,
know how
looks
long
like.
they'll take, and we have to sort of, as a community, be ready to help people communicate what's going on and respond to it, right?
And until this verdict comes out, this community cannot heal.
Yeah.
So it's important that this happens, and we can get to the next level and try to right this ship best way that we can.
So let me ask you a related question. Just if you're watching the news and following things that are going on in our community, obviously this process of seating a police oversight board, you were very involved early on in thinking about how do we empower a police auditor and those kinds of things. But the relationship you have with council, the relationship between the mayor and council, the way in which you think council and the mayor should work together, you've been on both sides of this issue. Thoughts about sort of what you would see different as you go forward in that space?
I think you have to spend time with your city council.
Yeah.
You have to go out with them. You have to after the meeting, instead of going home, you might need to go out and have a drink or have a sandwich. I think that's well spent time spending with them and them getting to know you. And even when I ran to be the council president, I think one of the reasons I could stay for 13 years because I had dinner with everybody every week. Every Monday, had dinner with different ones. And you get to know people. You get to know that they got kids in college. You need to know if they got sick parents, or you get to know who they are. And a very strange thing happens when you get to know somebody. You treat them differently. You're not so willing to take them on the floor or to fight with them because you know what they're going through, and you have that mutual respect. And I think that's something that you have to do. You have to spend time with the council, and you have to respect the council. And I know how it is to be a councilman, but if the administration has respect for the council and the council has respect for the administration, the city can move forward. And I think that we have to always think like that. And like I said, I'm always going to be, I always consider myself a councilman because a councilman really solves problems when things happen. He sees something he doesn't like. So I'm always bringing that to the table. I'm always thinking about how can I fix something that's not right. And so I think that's just important to do.
Final thoughts as we sort of close up here. If we had additional questions, anybody? No? Just some final thoughts as you sort of continue in this race and sort of move down the path toward the election in a couple months here that you'd like to leave the group with.
Well, I'd just like to, first of all, we're going to need everybody in this room to be involved, whatever goes on in this community. And the more people we have at the table and the more diverse opinions and ideals we have, the better we're going to be as a community. I would also just want people to know that when I'm elected, I would say that the business community will have a place at the table, because I think it's so important to make sure that the business community has a place at the table, because without the business community, nothing else happens. And I think the university. I think we have to really, really work strong with the university. I think we have a great president. President Millard is a fantastic president. He does great things. And I think we need to build upon that in order to move this community forward. It's my understanding that Lewis Atkins is going to be the new chair of the University Board of Trustees, which is a good thing. I have a great relationship with Lewis, another person I have a great relationship with. And just give the example of that, when he was looking to go someplace, after he left the county, I suggested that he go to Rexel because we had been on Rexel because they didn't have any minorities over there at the time. And I said, man, you need to go talk to them because I had told them they had to do better. And he went over there, and the rest is history, and now he's a partner over there, equity partner. He's doing a great job. And that's what happens when you get an opportunity. So those are the kind of things that we need to continue to help people do and see opportunities and force the sometimes you have to force people to do some things. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to do it nasty, but nice nasty maybe.
All for nice nasty. That's good. Well, Marco Sommerville, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Good luck as you sort of move forward here. Looking forward to the work, but also thank you for a lifetime of service to our community.
Thank you. Thank you.